Hello and welcome to the M Word, where we have uncensored conversations on all things marketing. We're your hosts, Jennifer Mulchandani
and Heather Michaelgard. For Season 2, our conversations are focused on brand. Listen in for ideas you can use for your brand. Enjoy today's episode.
On today's episode, Heather and I talk about what we're doing for Season 2, which is all about brand.
Many people define brand differently, so we're going to talk about why it's important to invest, how to build a brand, and when to know when it's time to change.
If you don't already know, Heather and I love the topic of all things brand, and wherever you are in your marketing journey, I hope today's conversation helps. Welcome back to Season 2. I'm Jennifer Mulchandani.
And I'm Heather Michaelgard. And it's great to be here.
And today we're just talking amongst ourselves because we thought it would be helpful to set the stage of what we're bringing this season, which is a little bit different than Season 1, where we talked a lot about origin stories and tactics to grow and a lot about digital marketing, very specific marketing tools and tricks, which I think was great, and we had wonderful feedback, but we wanted to change the tone a little bit this time.
Yeah, this season we're going to talk primarily about brand. And brand is not as tactical as some of the things we talked about in Season 1. I think a lot of people define brand differently, Jennifer. And so you and I are talking to business owners about how they define brand, because it really is, it's more than a logo. It's more than your font. It's more than your colors. It goes beyond that.
Yeah, what I found interesting so far is we've talked to a number of people, and when asked, tell us how you define brand, the range of responses is all, not all over the place, but it is kind of all over the place. And at the end of the day, you might think, well, who cares how you define it? And it's not that the words of how you define the word definition of brand changes. But it is important to understand if you are going to build a business, build a brand, sell products or services, that you understand what marketing people understand to be brand, because it's the baseline of building a marketing campaign or a marketing program. And I think what comes out in these conversations so far this year is, if you just jump in and try to get people to buy what you're selling, but you don't know who you are and you don't know who your target is and you don't know why you are or what's unique about you, then good luck. You're really, it's the cart before the horse in the marketing sense.
Yeah, I mean, we've been defining brand as, yes, it's an identity of a product, of a service, but it's so much deeper than that. It's really laying that foundational work of, who are you? What is your company? How do you want to sound to people? Why are you doing what you're doing? What are your values? Who are you speaking to? I think so many times we overlook the audience of who we're talking to and who we're selling to. And it's really, all of that groundwork needs to be poured and established and synthesized before you even get into a marketing strategy.
Absolutely. I think the clients we see who are the most successful, who have the strongest brands, writ large, they've done work, whether ahead of launching their company or at some point in their growth, to look internally and really define these things, because ultimately, like brand and branding, it's that impression you leave behind. It's what people remember or think of you. It's not any one element. It's a combination of elements. It's how you make your customers feel, what their experience is, what your words sound like, what your visuals look like, your user experience. I mean, all those things are elements of brand, but it does take work, and it's the kind of work that if you skip it, it actually makes everything else a little bit less effective, and you can end up having to backtrack. One of the I think the dangers of not investing in your own brand is confusing your audience. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and this has happened to me. I mean, where what's your expertise, or what's your target audience, or what's so special about you? And when you really start having to answer those hard questions, and you realize, like, I can't be all things to all people, and I'm not going to be special if I'm just everything. It forces you to narrow, but also really be clear.
Well, and it's an evolution, right? I mean, where you were with your business 10 years ago is different than where you are today. So I think it's being open to constantly analyzing who is my audience, what value am I bringing, and are those aligned, and being able to pivot if you need to. I think a lot of times business owners are also afraid to make that investment in themselves. They're afraid to make that investment because it isn't always an immediate return on investment. You can't always see it.
Yeah, it is hard to define our ROI on brand. I mean, and we see this in advertising when you're doing like brand campaigns, which is really just awareness, getting your business in front of people's eyeballs, building an understanding that you exist is different than doing campaigns that are lead generation or doing conversion campaigns or measuring other tactics, whereas brand becomes that intangible. And in some, in brass tacks, we might see, print advertising is much more, that's branding. I mean, you can have a call to action, but you can't measure it. Whereas digital is all about the data and that's, but back to the investment in brand, it's, even if you are doing it yourself, and I caution people about doing that hard work of brand without outside help, and it doesn't mean you have to hire a business consultant to do it, but it's having an outsider who isn't necessarily so close to what you're doing or who you are that you don't see your own blind spots and they challenge you. It takes a good amount of time, and you have to build in time for iteration, and part of defining your brand is also defining what's not in it, and that can be really scary for business owners who want to capture as much market share as absolutely possible. Doesn't necessarily mean your brand has to be that wide, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's so important to create a focus group and to ask people that aren't as close to the product and aren't as invested, am I making sense? When you hear this, what do you think about? When you read this mission statement or value statements, what's the first thing to come to mind? I think just getting that outside input is really important. And we'll talk to business owners just about, why invest, and then not only it's the marketing piece, but it's the internal piece too. Are you training your employees, your staff on the brand? Are they bought in on this brand too? Like getting them excited about it and getting them to go out then and talk to the world about what you're trying to do, sell, offer. It's really important to get that internal buy-in too.
I mean, I've said this before, but we do a lot of brand training, and we'll go into a business or an organization and train employees on getting everyone around the same page, or boards of directors. And I often say, who in the room is responsible for marketing here? And the one or two people will raise their hand, and I say, no, actually, you all are. You are, by virtue of the fact that you might be at somebody's dinner party and they say, where do you work? You are now a brand ambassador for where you work, for good or for bad. Like it is. And so if doing this brand work that we're going to cover this season is very helpful in getting that, whether you're a tiny team of like 4 people or you're a huge corporation, if you aren't treating your internal brand management as its own sort of channel, then you're missing huge opportunities. So it plays roles in HR and retention and employee happiness and all of that, which we all know, surprise, surprise, turns around and helps you be a better brand to the public because you reflect to the public what you are. So there's a lot of reasons to be very thoughtful about brand. And I think what's exciting about this season is we're hearing from all types of businesses and all types of organizations who've been through different stages of brand development, whether it's launching brand new or pivoting, changing what they're doing. And the pitfalls and the payoffs that have come out of these conversations, I think, are going to be helpful to you if you are listening to this and wondering if you're doing enough around your own brand and you want to learn from people who've been through it.
Yep, and we're going to give you guys ideas and tips on when to know when it's time to refresh. Is it time to rebrand? Is there something wrong with the product? Is it just the messaging? Like, we're going to give you some things to ask yourself as business owners to know how to keep evolving your brand and how to make it better. We're also going to ask these business owners who locally or nationally do they love as a brand? Who's doing a good job? Because I think it's also helpful to go out and see examples of people that are doing brand well and they're memorable. Maybe they're funny, but you immediately associate their name with their product or their service. And so that's helpful when you're creating your own strategies to put in place.
Absolutely. And I think, the inspiration that comes from talking about brands that are leading and doing well should be just that. It should be inspiration. And I think what we get into is how to build an authentic brand that is not for show, but is actually representative of what you care about, or what your owners care about, or your customers care about, so that it isn't about doing or trying to be who you're not, but it's about really focusing in on who you really are authentically and letting everything else flow from that.
I love that. And I think that's a great way to end this and wrap this up. And there is one more difference about season 2, and that's that we're in studio. We are in person. We can see each other. We can read each other's body language. And I think it just makes for such more of a robust conversation. So we're really excited about this. We hope you all are tuned in. We are so excited about season 2. Follow along wherever you listen to podcasts. If you like what you hear, leave us a review. If you have questions about brand, we would love to hear from you. You can visit us at arlingtonstrategy.com and send an email to info@arlingtonstrategy.com.
Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The M Word. We'd love to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter.
And we'd really love it if you would leave us a review.
Until next time, don't be afraid to be uncensored.
The M Word is an Arlington Strategy production hosted by Jennifer Mulchandani and Heather Michaelgard. Our theme music is Golden Reflections of the Sun by Vlad Glushenko.
Graphic design by Kayla Fagan. Sound engineering and editing by Ben Mulchandani and Nina Sofia Pacheco.
Editing by Nina Sofia Pacheco and Janelle Walters.